Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Dolphins Brawl. I am your host, Louis Sung, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Chad Ronenbaum, and once more, Ron Caniff, Dante Colinelli, in with the group, and we are going to discuss not the NFL draft, but the post-draft, which means the draft has already been finished.
Woo! Finally.
No more discussing who they're going to draft. Now we know exactly who they drafted, and we once again have the typical Dolphins Twitter. I love it. I hate it. Love fest. We're going to get into all of that, as well as a little bit of analysis into the prospects themselves, courtesy of our scout, Mr. Colinelli here. So we'll get right into that right now. But first, what we're going to discuss is some discussions going on. And Ron and Chad, you are aware of this. And I'm going to go ahead and let Ron explain the whole thing because he seems to have the most invested in it right now. So the floor is yours, my friend. What's going on?
What am I explaining? What? I didn't know I was leading the show. Are we talking about what we were just talking about right before we started recording?
Yes.
Yeah, it was more the, like we drafted Tua, right? And then after the first night, some people didn't like some of our first round picks, obviously. They didn't like the Austin Jackson pick, okay, and they didn't like the Iggy pick. I gotta say Iggy, I still don't know how to say his name yet, and didn't like the position it was. But I think most people were. Is that it?
Igbenogany.
I think most people were just like, yeah, whatever. They were in the Tua high there, so they kind of let it go. And then I guess a lot of people really didn't like our second and third round, because we didn't do it in the vision of what they thought we should do. So I'm kind of an early riser sometimes, as people may know on Twitter, and I wake up at like 3 a.m. on Saturday morning, and I just see this mess of people like just trashing like you wouldn't even think we just finally drafted a freaking quarterback for the first time in how long? And, since the 90s, really, I say that we're going to finally have a guy that's probably worth it. And it's all being led by, are we even saying his name or are we not saying his name?
No, we won't say names, but I will say that I can
led by a guy who has 190 or 90 followers on Twitter. Let's just start with that. The guy has 190 followers on Twitter, and everybody's like, let's get into this whole Bash Greer thing. Now, you've heard me on this show state that I get nervous about the O-linemen drafted after the first round from this team. They haven't been good generally, but then we've also pointed out to many that went to other teams and were good. So perhaps we just had some really trash coaching, but I just don't understand the negativity around what we did. If you just look at what we did, we kept on drafting to strengths. We kept on drafting to depth. We kept on drafting to development of the DBs. I know, Chad, you had talked a lot about how you want to get some DBs for Flores to coach up. Look at what he did with guys that were just, cast-offs from other rosters, were off. We pulled off other people's practice squads, etc. Now we've got some real talent for him to coach, and I'm excited about that. The defensive tackle spot, this team – they want to play a lot of times 3 defensive tackles at once in this defense. And they need some guys that can run stuff too. And they didn't have that before. We were joking about it, right? Last week when we did the show, or the week before, we were making funny. Hey, you got a 330-pound defensive tackle. You got a 340. But in actuality, they really needed that. And they went to go get it. So I just get annoyed by the fact, and maybe me and Dante, we might go back and forth a little bit on some of these picks individually. I just get annoyed by the fact that we drafted guys in it. They weren't values. This isn't fantasy football. If the Dolphins didn't reach off their own board, then it's not a reach, period. Regardless of what our board says, or Smell Diaper on ESPN, what his board says. I don't care what those people's boards say. The only board that matters is the Dolphins board. And as long as they weren't reaching off their board out of desperation, then that's good. I understand that they might have missed on some guys that they probably wanted. You can't give me a draft where you saw some guys go off the board and that would have been nice, but you can't draft everybody. So that's all I had to say about that, and I'll let some other people talk now.
All right, so I'll go ahead and do the thing where I play devil's advocate. I can understand the frustration in that, yes, the Dolphins picked a lot of project players. There's a lot of high upside, and I even wrote a story about it on 5 Reasons Sports. But I can understand if those players don't work out, then it's potentially that the whole draft that the Dolphins just did was kind of a wasted effort. Because in order for these players to work out, they have to develop. These are high upside, but also medium risk type players who, if they don't reach their full potential, they won't be able to contribute as much as we would like them to. Again, we'll go ahead and use Austin Jackson as an example. He is most definitely not Tristan Wirfs. He is most definitely not Andrew Thomas. He is most definitely not Mekhi Becton. He is not somebody who can step into the role in day one and immediately just light the NFL on fire. If his ceiling, we've talked about ceiling. Ceiling is going to be used a lot in this show. His ceiling is Laramie Tunsil. Then he has to get to the point where he becomes Laramie Tunsil. He's not there yet. He's got to work on his footwork. He's got to work on his hand technique. He's got to work on all that stuff. And his film shows he gets whooped a lot by a lot of other pass rushers. Like I'll use Chad's boy as an example, AJ Epinesa. He ripped them to shreds when they met up.
That's the example. I have seen that same one example like 50 times. Epinesa killed him. Epinesa killed him. Epinesa killed him. Okay, Epinesa killed him. We got it. I mean, he has a lot of other game tape beyond the matchup against Ebenezer.
I get that.
Some of it I get is inconsistent, but my God, that's the number one example. People keep saying that same thing over and over again at nauseum.
Because they're not impressed with Epinesa after he dropped so low in the draft.
I think, for like Austin Jackson too, is like Bradley and I killed him. Bradley and I is a 5th round pick for the Cowboys. I mean, Bradley and I took him to school. And I just think that I think the point that you guys make is interesting, though, is that the Dolphins executed their plan. I like what Ron said, that if they don't reach on their board, then does it really matter, right? Like I sat on this show and I said, I don't like Austin Jackson. I don't think he's a fit in Miami, and they took him 18th overall. So clearly they disagree with me. And I just think that if they're not going to reach off of their board, and you can see like every pick, I'm looking at the draft class right now, is like, I can sit here and justify every single pick that they make just given on either scheme or,
every pick
except for Jackson and the long
every pick.
I can do that too. I think every pick they made makes pretty good sense for the Dolphins.
Yeah, my thing with Jackson is that they drafted a bunch of maulers, and then they draft Jackson, who's like a finesse tackle. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not – it's a very weird anomaly given that they draft Robert Hunt, Solomon Kinley, and they sign Eric Flowers in free agency. All three of them are maulers, and you have Austin Jackson, who's a finesse guy. I just think that's really the only pick that sticks out like a sore thumb to me personally. But again, they didn't really have a ton of options there either. So
the mentality is also regarding the fact that the Dolphins apparently missed on some guys they wanted. I think the term that was used was there were a few table bangers. More than likely that regarded Tristan Wirfs, that probably regarded J.K. Dobbins, that probably regarded a few people that the Dolphins probably wanted to draft but didn't get the opportunity to, which forced them to go elsewhere. And I understood that. And I basically told this person, like, listen, nobody bats 1,000. Even the Ravens, as great as they always seem to draft, I'm sure that there were some guys that they wanted that they didn't get a chance to draft. And they just don't publicize that they didn't get the guy that they wanted. So maybe that's a mistake on Greer and Flores' part for admitting that they didn't get everybody they wanted. I'll say that.
Well, just by the statement of what there was a few times, like the bang the table statement. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes, it's like that's them saying like, I wanted that guy.
Well, yeah,
so
okay,
go up and get him.
He was, I guess he just, excuse him for being honest. I guess perhaps it wasn't the smartest thing to do in that case. However, that one story where they said, he was so mad that they didn't get J.K. Dobbins. And, this story, 5 picks later, this story was written. Like, seriously, it was ridiculous. Like, what did Chris Greer do? Right. He's in a house by himself, so he didn't get overheard by anybody. So what did he do? Pick up the phone, say, oh man, hey, reporter from Sun Sentinel. Yeah, I just screwed up, bro. Yeah, print it. Come on, it's so dumb, man. It's so dumb. Who are these sources? What, his kids? Who were these sources? Come on.
It's even like more interesting is like they could have drafted J.K. Dobbins at 39. They could have drafted him at 30. They could have traded up again from 56 to grab him if they really wanted him. I think
exactly.
If they wanted J.K. Dobbins, I think they
would have drafted him. Exactly.
Right. It's not like Dobbins went abnormally high. He went at 55 to Baltimore, which is probably lower than we thought he would go in the first place. So if the Dolphins wanted to draft J.K. Dobbins, they would have done it.
I agree.
But that's what I'm talking about. It's like this. Remember what we were discussing when we did our mock drafts and stuff. We were always thinking, well, we're not going to need all of these mid-round picks. We want all the top players. The Dolphins, how many players did they draft, Dante? Finally, I can't remember.
Yeah, it was 11.
That's 12. I could be wrong on that.
I got 11.
So
Okay.
11 players total.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
the mentality that we had is that the Dolphins don't need to draft that many players. You should use some of those picks that they have to actually trade up and get some of the top talent. And that's where the complaint comes in.
It's 10 flat, 10 players.
10 players?
Yeah.
Oh, they did move up in draft though. I mean,
because
They just didn't do it in the first round, and I think that's what, again, the armchair GMs that, watch YouTube highlights and now have their free NFL game day pass, they know everything. I mean, come on, man. It's so aggravating. Sorry. I've been ranting about it for like 2-3 days.
I have a hard time being critical on where you trade because you don't know what people are asking. I mean, people could be way unreasonable. Some people don't want to trade at all. And so you can't trade for the sake of trading just because you have extra picks. You have to be smart. So I mean, we don't know that Miami didn't try to move up at certain spots for certain people. I mean, people aren't going to report that because, nobody wants to say that if you don't have to. You're like, yeah, Miami called. They wanted to make a trade. In Greer, and all GMs say this is just kind of the same responses. We entertain trades all the time. We review players all the time. We take phone calls all the time. And so you just don't know, like, what their options were to move up. Did Miami want somebody like Tristan Wirfs? Maybe, but we have no idea what the cost would have been to obtain him. And I don't think the majority of fans out there are going to say we should have taken Tristan Wirfs and not Tua. So, how do you be critical of who they didn't get when you don't know what the costs were to try to get those players? I guess
I don't think the argument was so much that why didn't they draft this guy instead of Tua. I think the mentality was they should have been able to get both by trading back up and getting them. Because if you think about it, Austin Jackson probably would have been available at 26. Austin Jackson, this guy Noah Igbenogany would have been available lower down the line because I don't think
they did.
We don't know that.
We don't know that, but we speculate.
And they did. I thought they did play that right. That was a guy they wanted, and they dropped 4 spots and picked up an extra pick. That's what you would want to do. Like you don't want to fall too far.
But Jackson at 18 was the biggest issue, I think.
I don't know. I think a lot of people are against the pick, but the 4 tackles are off the board, and I think people got to keep in mind is. Miami doesn't need a stud left tackle because they just drafted Tua. And if Tua's the plan, which obviously he is, you don't need this dominant left tackle. You need a good right tackle because he's left-handed. You don't protect his blind side. And so I look at Austin Jackson and I'm like, do you want a plug-and-play player right now, or do you want a guy that has a high ceiling? And just look at Austin Jackson on film. He's big and he's not carrying a lot of weight. He could easily probably put on 20 pounds. You put him in the strength program, and he's 20 years old. He's probably got more upside maybe than everybody but Becton right now in terms of just sheer talent. And so I won't be shocked at all if in 2 or 3 years that Austin Jackson is a better tackle than the guys who are ahead of him right now. And, you look at the other popular pick was Josh Jones. Where did he go? Was he like the 3rd round?
Yeah, he went like 82 to the Cardinals, I think.
So,
yes.
And Dante called that one up, but obviously there was something probably more than we were aware of because he had a successful college career. I think Dante pointed out an episode or 2 ago, he hadn't really fundamentally done a lot of what you have to do in the NFL. And he's probably, 22, 23. To me, the Dolphins have a lot of faith in their coaching. And that's what I'm looking at. They're looking at talent. And we're coming off these years of Tannenbaum, where Tannenbaum always wanted a guy that could come in now. He liked Jason, the big name, free agents, and he wanted plug-and-play players in the draft. And I had alluded to this a few weeks ago. This is kind of more like a Jeff Ireland approach where they're looking at talent. And they want to take talent and they want to mold it. And that's the same thing with the corner. Igbenogany, right? Am I saying that right?
Igbenogany is what I'm going with until someone corrects me.
Igbenogany. It's a tough name to say, but I've been watching the film on all these prospects. The guy, he's a very aggressive tackler, which you have got to be in a Brian Flores defense because he wants to put extra defensive backs on the field and he wants to put them in man. And you cannot survive in the Dolphins defense as a D-back if you cannot tackle proficiently. And there's a lot of corners in the NFL that can. They're small guys that are cover corners, and they're not very good in run support. And this guy can tackle. I can tell you right now, he's an aggressive tackler. He's got ridiculous speed, but I've watched film on him. He's grabby. There was a lot of film where he doesn't get his head around. He's going to get a lot of flags in the NFL right now, which means Flores is going to have to work with him on cover technique because
he's got no ball skills. Not at all. He has no idea how to play the ball.
He sticks to his man. But he sticks to his man.
Well,
he sticks to his man.
I'm saying watch film with him. I've watched a couple of games and focused in on him, watched some of his highlights. He doesn't have very good technical, like when the ball's exactly what Dante said, is when the ball's in the air, there's a lot of times he's doing this, facing the defender. There's a lot of times he's grabby, and that's a lot more lenient in college than in the NFL. You get flagged for that quickly in the NFL. And so this is a guy that's talented, that's going to need to be coached. But you cannot deny his speed. You cannot deny his tackle ability. And if Flores can coach him up, you're looking at an ideal slot corner that's going to be on the field a lot. And the same thing with Austin Jackson. Wait till the trainers get look at Austin Jackson on film. The guy's huge and he's not fat. I mean, you see a lot of offensive linemen and you can see they're carrying an extra 20 or 30 pounds because they're not in that great a shape. They're huge men, but this guy can easily put on weight and he's quick. But he got beat by AJ Epineza. He's got beat by some of the other NFL caliber DNs, and so you have to assume he's going to be going through a learning curve in the NFL. Now, should we have gotten a plug-and-play player? You can argue that, but this draft and these guys, they're not worried about trying to win immediately. They're trying to build a Super Bowl contender, and they're going with talent. I mean, that was every single player. It makes sense where they're going to put them and what their roles are going to be. And they got some really, really talented players for what their intended purposes are.
And that's the argument that I wanted to make as well, is that the Dolphins are drafting they're not drafting to win in 2020. They're drafting to win in 2021 and 2022 and beyond. So
they're going to, knowing Flores, they're going to try to win now. But but you look at the assets. This team got the makeover is unbelievable. You're probably looking at 20 to 30 new players that are going to be on the field and substantially improvement in talent. I mean, just look at the other thing I wanted to point out before we move on to the next topic is the 3-4 is now here. I mean, you have to understand when Flores came in, this was a wide 9-4-3 scheme that he inherited for the roster. And that's when you have guys like Cameron Wake, Charles Harris, those guys are designed to be out beating tackles around the edge with speed and rushing the quarterback. And now you've got Shaq Lawson, you've got Ogba, they picked up Curtis Weaver, they picked up Jason Strobridge. These are 270-pound defensive ends that set the edge, not designed to come in and be double-digit sack guys. They're in there now. Obviously, we don't have small athletic guards. They want big guys that move the line of scrimmage straight forward.
They want Richie Incognitos.
Well, now we've brought in Eric Flowers, and we've brought in 2 rookie guards that are massive pile movers. So I mean, we're going to be running the ball right up the gut on this team right now. We've got the manpower to do it. We didn't have that when these guys came here because this again, when that was almost started with Philbin and Gase was the same way. They didn't want them real big, powerful guards. They liked those finesse guards so they could try to run zone stretch runs and all this stuff like that. And this is going to be a more classic power run scheme is what I'm seeing.
And I'm 100% okay with that. All right, so we went ahead and got that out of the way. Now what we're going to discuss is the actual prospects themselves. So, Dante, I'm going to go ahead and put the floor to you. So, besides Tua, because don't worry, folks, we'll talk about Tua a little bit. We'll get there. Don't worry. It'll come up. But besides Tua, who was the pick that you felt was the greatest value of them all for the Dolphins?
I mean, I think for me, it starts in round 5 with Curtis Weaver, just given that he was a top 50 player on my board. I think he's a perfect fit for what the Dolphins do. He's good inside, outside rush moves. He's pretty versatile. I think the thing you worry about is, he's not a great athlete. He's fairly limited from an athletic standpoint. He's not very bursty. He's not the most bendy guy in the world. But given his strengths, I think that he can be a really, really good value as a 5th-round pick, as someone who's a rotational player behind Shaq Lawson, behind Emmanuel Ogba. Eventually, he takes over for one of them when they leave. They both sign shorter-term deals. I think that could be a great value in the 5th round. And, I'll be frank, I was not a huge fan of our picks outside of the Tua pick in the 1st round, but I do think that what are we calling him, Iggy? I think that he's got a ton of potential. There's a ton of tools to work with there. And if I was going to send a DB with his tools anywhere, I would want to send him to Brian Flores. So that's obviously an appealing fit to me as well. What do you guys think?
Of my favorite pick or of
Yeah.
Iggy?
Yeah.
The best value in your book, not besides Tua. Tua is obviously the winner in all the categories, but
It's hard to argue with Curtis Weaver with Dante there. I mean, that I looked at him and I was kind of surprised that they picked Strobridge is a bigger. He'll probably be more of he can move inside and play some D tackle. Where Curtis Weaver to me looks like he's going to stay out. He'll be more of a traditional DN, but he's got some, like he had a lot of footage. Now, I guess you got to take it with who the competition levels he's playing against, because Boise State doesn't play always high competition, but he looked like he got around the edge quite a bit on some of the film. I haven't watched a lot of film on Curtis Weaver yet, but he had some impressive highlights on being able to pressure the quarterback. And when you can get both, when you can get a 3-4 DN that can set the edge really well but still get to the quarterback, that's a nice skill set. And he's coming into a really good situation, because I have to assume that our starting DNs in our base defense will be Shaq Lawson and Ogba that came over from the Chiefs. Those will be our two big edge-setting DNs, and then you're going to have Strobridge and Reaver behind them. I like bringing in guys that have upside like that have talent, but you don't have to rely on them out of the gate. That's 4 DNs now that we can rotate in that scheme that I think's got a good value there. And I also like the D tackle, Raheem Davis out of Alabama. I mean, he's a monster. And I mean, it's the guy I was just talking about, Austin Jackson, and you look at his frame. This guy's 6'6", over 300 pounds, and he can easily put on another 20, 30 pounds. And he's just going to be a monster in the middle there. And he isn't being brought into being a Dominican Sue and pick up sacks. He's being brought in to create problems in the middle of that defense and be hard to move around. I liked the pick. I like the guy's upside. Again, he's probably not going to come in, in day one, be a dominant D tackle, but to rotate in there with Wilkins and Godshaw, I think he's a good fit and he's a good value in there, because I didn't think this was a really strong defensive tackle class in general. There wasn't a lot of really good D tackles on the board after the first 2 or 3 came off. And so I liked where they got him at. It made sense to me.
Mr. Caniff.
Raekwon Davis was my favorite pick, simply because I really felt like they needed that defensive tackle. I agree with Chad. They're going to put on some weight. I know that a lot of people are not understanding why there such a decline in sacks. I mean, I can't speak to exactly why there was such a decline in sacks, but I can speak to the fact is exactly what Chad said. We're not really asking him to come in and be a big sack guy. We're asking him to come in and stuff the middle up. And I think Miami wants to play multiple defensive tackles. Sometimes they'll have 3 different defensive tackles on the field in run stopping situations. And they needed at least one, kind of zero tech guy, you know what I'm saying, that can just stuff the middle up. And I think
Davis?
with some more weight. I mean, with some more weight. Right now he's still a little light, but with some more weight, definitely I believe you just need a guy, and I think Chad said this a couple of weeks ago, you need a guy that takes a center and a guard to move. That he kind of clogs up the middle a little bit, makes it harder for the other team to run. I really liked that pick a lot. And overall, I love their focus to continue to be on the defense. And how, yes, we did so much defense in the free agency, you thought, this will be all offense. And it just wasn't the case. They still, 2 defensive ends, safety, cornerback, tackle. I mean, they still went for it on the defensive side. They're really trying to, quote unquote, finish off this defense, so to speak. And what they've done on defense as a whole between free agency and the draft really has me excited. It's what I've wanted to see this team do for so long. I'm still sad that Minkah Fitzpatrick can't be part of this if he hadn't shown his butt and been so selfish. I really think if he could have seen what was coming, he wouldn't have done that. I think he was nervous that that the team was going to be in total rebuild tank mode for 3 or 4 years, and it was going to hurt him, and in the end hurt him financially on his second contract. I really think that's what it came down to, and he felt like this rebuild thing wasn't for him. I really think he could have been a really special piece of this, but hey, bygones. He's gone now. We've moved on, And I just like overall what they did on the defensive side, and I like what they did with the line. They were still able to get some pieces on the offense and pick a lot of linemen. They picked 3 linemen, right? 2 guards and a tackle. Yep. And just they want to run the power game, and except for Austin Jackson, like you guys have pointed out, man, the guards they picked in Solomon Kinley and in
Robert
Hunt. Yeah,
I'm not convinced Hunt's going to be a guard, for the record. I think they might put him to tackle.
No, I think
he's kind of a big boy pusher to be a tackle. But
I can't see him handling the speed at the end.
But one thing I want to point out too is if you move up to try and go get Wirf or one of the other guards, or one of the other tackles, one of the top 4 tackles, you miss out on Iggy, and you probably miss out on Solomon Kinley. I mean, you're missing out on both those guys to go do that, and instead you got 3. You got Jackson, you got Kinley, you got Iggy. Again, you never know how these players are going to work out. I mean, some of these players aren't going to work out, and some are. Every team's draft is that way. It's rare you see a draft where, oh man, we drafted 7, 8, 9, 10 guys, and all of them are studs. They're all going to the Pro Bowl. It's just, or they're all big time contributors. You don't normally see that anyway. But I don't know that it would be worth it to have given up on those 2 players just to get the 1 tackle. I don't think it was worth it. I felt like Miami didn't think it was worth it. And as you said, Chad, we don't know what it was going to cost. Maybe they made the call, but we don't know what it would have cost to go get Wirf. So I'm happy with what they did. I'm happy they stood put in the first round and even picked up that extra 4th, which is what helped them get Solomon Kinley, because they took their 2 4ths and then moved up to go get him. They wouldn't have had that second 4th without the move down from the Packers, so that the Packers could have their crappy draft. But anyway, we're not here to do a Packers show. That's my thoughts on it in general.
I would say that the Dolphins, we're talking about all of a sudden that Hunt is going to be a guard for sure. I'm really not convinced of that. I think they might, because he spent a lot of time being a right tackle.
But you got to look at the competition level he was being a tackle again.
No, I understand that, but
I don't think he has the feet to be a tackle. I mean, if we're going to talk about this from I don't think he has the feet to be a tackle at the next level. He certainly has the length and the size, but tackle requires a certain amount of movement skills that I just do not think that Robert Hunt possesses. I think he's stiff. I think he plays high. And that's much easier to deal with in the interior. I mean, the kid's a mauler. I think that he fits perfectly with what Miami wants to do. So I don't want to make it sound like I'm bashing on the kid. I don't see him as an NFL tackle. Maybe Miami can coach him up, like you said.
Right, that's what I was about to ask. Because can those flaws be coached out of him?
I don't see it.
It's tough. Those are the tougher ones. I mean, that's why Austin Jackson was the 18th overall pick, because he has the things that you can't coach. And he needs all of the things that you can coach. Robert Hunt's kind of the opposite in a lot of ways. So I don't know. Maybe they do view him as a tackle. I think this would be a good if I was going to pick an offense for him to be a tackle in, it would be one that I think Chan Gailey's probably going to run, which is, a spread scheme with power gap concepts. I think that would be a good spot for him. But I think he's a good guard. You play him at guard. If you need him to kick out the tackle, you need him to kick out the tackle. I just see it as an unneeded risk to take at this point. And
they need him. They need the guard. I mean, they obviously want powerful guards that move people. That's what he fits the bill.
But this is why I asked the question, because if we're going with power scheme and we're trying to do this and we're trying to do that, wouldn't it be prudent? If it's all, Dante already pointed out how there's like an anomaly here with Austin Jackson in the first place, is that he's not a power type guy. So if you have Austin Jackson as your projected left tackle, who again he's not a power guy, and you have Brandon Flowers as your left guard, you have Ted Karras or potentially Michael Dieter if they kick him inside the center. So that's something that can be considered, because a lot of people think that Dieter's tape is better at center than at guard in the first place. So that's something to consider. But then you have, again, right guard is who? You have Shaq Calhoun and
Not
nobody
anymore.
else. Not, exactly. So
I would imagine they're projecting Hunt to play a guard this year.
But or Solomon Kinley.
Yeah, I mean that's why I like the draft. We have the depth. You got Solomon Kinley, you've got Robert Hunt, and you've got Eric Flowers. So there's three, and it's clear what they want. They want big physical guards.
Right.
And that's what all three of those guys are. Where Dieter fits in, if I were him, I would be trying hard to be center because I just don't think he's going to beat those other guys out. Unless he really, really hit the gym. I just don't think he's as powerful as those guys they've brought in at guard, and he could be ideal at center. I don't think our tackles are necessarily – I think Austin Jackson – I understand where people are at. He's 18th overall pick, and they're going to have him spend some time with trainers, and he's definitely going to need some coaching. But exactly what Dante's saying is he has the talent, he has the speed, the quickness, and the body type to be a left tackle in the NFL. Robert Hunt, to me, he's a very heavy player. You look at look at the two on tape. Look at Austin Jackson. Look at Robert Hunt. Robert Hunt's he's a big, massive guy. I just don't see him setting up in his stances and getting back quick enough and setting his feet fast enough at speed. The edge rushers come around in the NFL, especially with the number of teams that play 4-3 that have guys like a Cameron Wake. A Cameron Wake would eat Robert Hunt up at the end if he was playing tackle. But they don't bring him in here to do that. This is a big, massive guard, and he looks. I know he's playing against lower competition, but watching Robert Hunt's tape, oh my God, he just is annihilating people. Yep. And that's exactly what they want at guard in there. And I'm excited to see. I'm hoping that he can carry some of that forward in the NFL because he looks big and nasty, and we haven't had that. We've been very finesse at guard through a few coaching schemes now, and I like that switch. Defensive, though, guys, this team, I've been saying this now after this draft, this is going to be a very good defense. And people don't see that coming yet, but Brian Flores is a good defensive coordinator. He's very good with defensive backs, and he has got the chess pieces now. He can go a really big line and all the rest D-backs. He can go with 4 linebackers on the field, and he's got the personnel to switch around his defensive looks a lot. And he's got defensive backs that can play all over the place. This is exactly what Brian Flores wants on defense, and that they're going to be very difficult for teams. I'm calling it right now. This team is going to be close to a top 10 or higher defense this year.
That's quite a jump. Now,
I mean, if you want to have fun on defense, you need guys that can play man coverage. And now you've got Xavier Howard, you've got Byron Jones. They just brought out another guy, even though he's got some work to do, he can play man. You can put Bobby McCain in man. You've got Eric Rowe. Both those safeties can cover. And when you can put guys in man, you can move pieces around because you know what? We're not going to help this guy. We're just going to leave Xavier Howard in man. We're just going to leave Byron Jones in man. And we're going to move our safeties and linebackers around. We're going to blitz. We're going to be all over the place with them. It's going to be very difficult to read what we're doing. You can do that, in schemes. You can blitz, but if you don't have corners that can play man-to-man coverage, the offenses figure that out pretty quickly, and you get burned because they're looking at it and say, all right, I can look at my pre-snap read. I've got this corner out here. I know he struggles in man-to-man coverage, so we're going to attack him immediately. You can blitz all you want. There's nothing you can do. They're going to attack your corner. But if teams want to come in and throw the ball a lot at Byron Jones and Xavier Howard, they're going to welcome that because those are going to become interceptions really quickly. So this is a really good defense for what Brian Flores wants to do. I feel very, very – getting Kyle Van Noy is amazing too because that's a guy that can do a lot of versatility in a scheme very effectively. Anyway, I'll get off my soapbox, but I really like our defense right now.
This whole show is soapboxes for everybody. Somebody wants to make a point, they can make a point. But now, this is the thing that I am concerned about. So if you guys are projecting Robert Hunt as a guard instead of a tackle, I do have some other people that I listen to that are projecting him as a tackle. But that being said, if you guys are projecting him as a guard, does that mean that the Dolphins did not address the right tackle position at all? And Jesse Davis is the plan?
Yeah, I don't think they did. I don't know where you guys rate Davenport, the guy we got from the Texans, because he'll be back and healthy, but he's probably going to be in that tackle.
Exactly.
I rate him really low.
We could use a veteran offensive tackle. But, I mean, it's like I said, this is you're taking a team where Miami was and the amount of improvement they've had, but they didn't get the tackle question probably answered yet. But look, we've got 2 first-round picks next year. We've got 2 second-round picks next year. We'll probably be using one of those picks on our right tackle next year. That would be my my guess of what's going to happen. But no, you're right, Lewis. We don't have great tackles right now. We've got a development one in Austin Jackson. You've got probably a average tackle in Jesse Davis, and that's what we're going to have to work with this year unless something changes in a trade or free agency or something like that.
Okay, well.
To be fair to Lewis's point, he isn't the only one that's talked about Hunt moving to tackle, and I've heard that from some people I actually trust right from the moment we drafted him. So I even though I know you guys are saying that it's not, I know that you guys are saying that's not his position and it isn't likely and he doesn't have that skill set. I don't know. It's a little up in the air because Lewis makes another good point. If he's not a tackle, well, then who did we get to address tackle? Not that we're going to be able to address the whole line in 1 year because we just couldn't. But it is if you're not moving him or someone else to tackle, then that does leave that position quite light. So I'm not going to completely bag on Lewis for that comment, even though I understand where you guys are coming from with why you don't think he is a tackle.
Dante, go ahead.
No, I mean, I would not be surprised if they give him a run at right tackle. I just don't think it'll go well, right? So I'm not saying that maybe they don't think they can do it or that maybe they won't. I'm just looking at it from a scout's perspective as like they can put him out there at right tackle all they want. I just don't think it'll go well, right? So
what would be the point? I watching tape on Robert Hunt, there's no way he's, in my opinion, there's no way he's going to be quick enough to be a really good left tackle, because if you play him at right tackle, you're essentially saying he's a left tackle. You have to understand that if Tua is your quarterback, your right tackle has got to be a really, really good pass blocker off the edge, because otherwise you're exposing Tua the same way you would a left tackle. And I can't imagine they're bringing Robert Hunt in thinking he's going to be our dominating right tackle next year. I just don't see him having that skill. If anything, you'd be playing Austin Jackson on the right side, trying to develop him. Tua's not going to play this year, most likely, right? You don't need your right tackle right now anyway. And so you need a left tackle, and they're probably looking at it like Jesse Davis can play right tackle. He's effective. He's not going to be a dominant right tackle, but we don't need a dominant right tackle yet because our quarterback's going to be Ryan Fitzpatrick or Josh Rosen.
Define effective.
I would say Jesse Davis is probably somewhere between.
Ron, we can't hear anything you're saying.
20 and 15. Somewhere between 15 and 20th best right tackle in the league. Right, but Jesse Davis.
I don't know.
Well, I thought Chad's microphone cut out when he was saying effective, and we missed in at the beginning of it.
Jesse Davis isn't that bad of a right tackle. I
He's
don't
not
know where
good
you guys...
either.
I don't know. I would say he's definitely below average. I just think, and as far as like having the better tackle as a blindside protector, I just think teams have enough good pass rushers right now that you need both tackles to be good, regardless of. I mean, Von Miller rushes off the right side, right? And I would consider
Cameron Wake rushed off the right side for years.
You need two good tackles, but it's a whole different ball game when you can't protect, when you don't have a really good one protecting the blind side of the quarterback. Because at least, if you move him over, the quarterback sees him coming. That doesn't mean he's not going to be disruptive, and you don't need a good tackle. But look, Tua, the last thing they want him doing is taking blindside shots when he gets in there. They're going to need a really good right tackle, and that guy is not on the team. That's the reality that I'm seeing.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you there. Definitely not on the team. I think that even if they do kick Robert Hunt out there, I just think there's a reason that everyone listed him as a guard, right? Like there's a reason for that. Like it's not like that's me sitting here on my high horse as an amateur draft analyst. Like the big guys had him at guard. The NFL team, he was announced as a guard. There's a reason that he's a guard. I'm not saying they would try him at tackle. I'm not even saying maybe that they shouldn't, given the state of the roster. I just don't think he has the skills to be successful in that area right now.
We've got plenty of subpart. I mean, Eric Flowers can play tackle, not very well.
Please stop. No, I don't ever want to hear that again.
I'm just saying, if you want to put guys that don't have the skill set on a tackle that know how to play tackle, we've got plenty of that.
Can we just agree? Can we just agree that this line has added talent, but is still a work in progress? I mean, I think we could pick it. I think we could pick this to death all from beginning, and we could pick center. We could pick, hey, the guards. We've got some guards, but they're rookies. We've got a tackle is like a little. What's the Bullygate guy? What's his name?
Incognito?
No.
Jonathan Martin?
Yeah, he's a little Jonathan Martin-esque physically right now. I get that. I mean, we added talent. It's still a work in progress. I think we need another full off season of a little bit of free agency and another draft before we really start to see this start to round out. Let's just face it. We were not able to fix an entire unit of, people talked about we needed 5 starters. We almost needed 5 starters plus probably a couple more. We really almost had to replace the whole room. We haven't yet. But maybe when it's all said and done, I think in 2 years, you may see what that room looked like in 2019 and in 2021 is a completely different group of 8 or 9 guys. Right. I think that's where it's coming, and you just can't do that in a year. So I think I'm glad that we got there. We're still building for 2021 overall anyway. And I still think we're going to see some stuff on the line we don't love. I still think that our running game is going to be kind of meh. Our protection kind of meh. There'll be questions on this offense again to this line, and I know it's going to frustrate people, but you just can't fix a line with that void of talent that quickly.
Oh no, I feel pretty good about we finally got some big talent on our interior. I mean, we've been through Donald Thomas. Do you remember those days? I
remember Dallas Thomas.
Dallas Thomas.
I think there was a Donald Thomas too. He sucked too. So
whatever. But we just been abused on the interior of our line, and we finally got some big, powerful guys. I know they're young; they're going to have growing pains. I know we don't have the tackle position solved yet, but like you said, Ron, we started with we needed a whole new line practically, and so. We've brought in Eric Flowers. We've brought in 2 other really, I think, high upside guards. If you want to have power run football schemes, I'm pretty happy with where we were at, considering how much they had to bring in. So
now I could see them spending their first high pick next year, whichever that is, whether it's ours or Houston's. They'll probably be spending it on a tackle. It's just likely.
Oh, I think it's
almost a guarantee at this point.
Unless there's some really high-profile guy that's in his mid-20s on a second contract that's a really good tackle in free agency next year. I would say it's almost certain they're in the first 2 rounds we're going tackle one of our picks.
Yep, for sure.
All right, I can go along with that. All right, so Dante, do me a favor real quick and read down who the Dolphins drafted real quick, just to refresh my memory.
So we have Tua, Austin Jackson, Noah Iganabani, Robert Hunt, Raekwon Davis, Brandon Jones, Solomon Kinley, Jason Strobridge, Curtis Weaver, Blake Ferguson, and Malcolm Perry.
That was the guy. Okay, so because Malcolm Perry. Okay, first of all, my father being a Navy veteran for 26 years, he called me weeks before the draft even began to be a thing, and he was telling me, hey, this kid Malcolm Perry from Navy, he's really good. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, so my father's just biased against the Navy, whatever, that's fine. I never ever pictured that the Dolphins would actually draft this guy, and I guess I underestimated my father because he was saying that Perry's got something there, and now the Dolphins have I think they've officially listed him as a running back. So if this is the case, then it's very possible that we've seen the last of Kalen Ballage in Miami, because the last niche that Kalen Ballage had was that he was considered the wildcat running back. And now we have a guy who's listed as a running back who actually was a quarterback. So
I think this is the Taysom Hill effect. Other teams did this too.
Taysom Hill,
they're
exactly.
A guy that can do multiple type of things like that.
I also think too that part of this player's issue was Perry's issue was that he's considered like a little speed burner guy, but yet somehow went to the combine and ran like I think I have this right at 4.63. I'm not saying that's the reason he dropped several rounds, but I don't think it. I mean, when you're a speed burner, if you're Jakeem Grant and you show up to the draft, you show up to the combine and you run a 4.6. That hurt you. Heck, look what happened to Landry when he did that. I mean, he should have been a first rounder. He ran a 4.6 and he dropped.
He's not that slow in reality.
When people are looking for speed in a position, if Ruggs goes in and runs a 4.5 or a 4.6, he doesn't get drafted at 12 to the Raiders. He might be a second rounder. I mean, it makes a huge difference sometimes in some of these receivers and some of these smaller running backs that the number one reason you're getting them is they're supposed to be fast, and they show up to the combine, and for whatever reason, they ain't fast. But if you look at some of his tape that I've seen, again, highlights, didn't see all the plays. He looks pretty fast to me on the field. At least he can be. But anyway, I guess it's interesting.
I think
It's always interesting when you can find a 6th or 7th round guy that is going to be on your team. That's why I'm not against the is it Blake Ferguson, the long snapper?
Yeah.
You know how many 6th rounds at almost any other position you will draft and will end up on your practice squad and be gone in 2 years? Like
No, you're right.
most,
He'll probably be the long
of them.
snapper.
But what have we done? We drafted a utility guy that you can use in multiple ways. Last year, we drafted a fullback. The only fullback we have, guess what? We just drafted a 7th rounder that's going to play. We drafted a long snapper and we cut, was it Tabor Pepper?
He got cut.
Tabor Pepper
today.
Yeah, he got
became
cut.
a fan favorite, and now he gone.
So guess what? We drafted a guy who's going to play. That's such a smart use of your 6th and 7th round picks instead of trying to find your 7th or 8th wide receiver who's going to be on your practice squad and then gone in 2 years like most teams do. Like we always have every single freaking year for
Dante,
30
better,
years.
James Prochet or Isaiah Ford?
James Prochet.
Thank you.
My thing for the long snapper is just that who else?
He's a long snapper.
Who else is going to draft a long snapper? And
It's happened 4 times in the last few years when it had never happened before.
4 times?
Didn't they say that this is the first time
It
a
is
long
not.
snapper had ever been
No,
drafted?
absolutely not. It had never
No.
happened till a few years ago, and then now 4 times in the last few years it has happened.
Okay,
Why not
but-
take? I'm telling you, I guarantee you the odds of drafting a kicker, a punter, a long snapper, a fullback, and that guy still being on your team and being a contributor 2 or 3 years from now is times 10 that of drafting any other position.
Yeah,
Okay,
in
but
the-
that's fine. But
What
that's
is
a
his
punter and a
impact?
kicker at least.
What's
a
his
punter and
impact as a long
But I'm
snapper?
giving you an example of all the positions those are the types of positions you draft. Why
Ron,
fight
that's
for
fine.
him?
That's fine, Ron.
Why fight
I get
for him
that.
with
I get
31
that.
other teams?
Ron, listen, I get it. If we had drafted a punter, I would have said, okay, fine, whatever. He's gonna get Matt Hawk out of here, and I'm gonna actually say his name the way that it feels like it's spelled, Matt Hack, because he's a hack, and we don't have to deal with him anymore. But that's a punter, a kicker. If he actually scores points for you. What did Tabor Peppers do wrong that you needed to draft a new long snapper?
There was obviously something that we aren't aware of because they made the point to make a pick and cut him right away. So
Yeah, they don't like his. Maybe they didn't like his social media use. I don't know. I'm not
Oh,
sure
for
why.
heaven's sake.
They
Honestly.
were replacing him. That's clear.
Maybe they didn't like that he told somebody to long snap
I mean, you're talking
on
6th
Twitter.
and 7th
Pat.
round. The chances
Yeah,
of those
I
picks
mean,
are low anyway.
we're splitting hairs. I just don't understand how a long snapper, like how much better of a long snapper can you get than a guy who didn't screw up one? We didn't have a bad snap
We
last year.
kept John Denny until he was 41.
Yeah,
It's not that much of a difference.
I'm sorry. This is just not enough. Like, it's a 6th round pick. In the grand scheme of things, you're right. It probably doesn't matter. It's probably not a bad thing. I don't see any value here. I don't see that we've incurred any value. It's not like Taylor Pepper was like known for snapping the ball over, whoever's head. I just don't understand why this was anything.
It's a
that
lateral
didn't
move.
happen.
That's what it feels like.
I
It's
really
like you use
don't.
the draft pick to just do the same thing again. We already
I-
had.
had a bad
all I
attitude.
can see it
Maybe-
as is he's the only one you've identified that's worth it, and you're going to need to get a long snapper, so you're worried enough that he's going to sign with somebody else that you're using a late pick on him. But that's all. But I mean, I don't know. I don't know the dynamics of why they drafted him. Dante's probably right. There's a good chance he wouldn't have been drafted, but if you have identified you want a new long snapper and you don't have anybody on the board that's probably not going to anything but a practice squad and cut, you might as well get the player that's going to actually play a few snaps versus a player that won't play at all. That's the way I would look at it. But I don't know what their board looks like in the 6th round. So,
All right. So we put it off long enough. Let's talk about Tua. Yay.
I'd
Okay.
say forget about him. Like, worry about him next year. Wrap him up, let him heal, and we'll worry about Tua next year.
Go ahead, Dante.
Yeah, my hot take is that I think Tua's going to play at some point this year.
You think so? Ooh.
I do. Yeah, I really do.
play it.
I think he's healthier than people think that he is, and I think that he's going to be ready to go before. I don't think they like Josh Rosen. I don't think they want to see him on the field, and that hurts me inside because I loved Josh Rosen coming out of college, but I don't think the Dolphins like him, and I don't know how much faith I have in Ryan Fitzpatrick to survive a 16-game season. I really think Tua might see the field. I don't think it'll be right away. I don't think he'll start week 1, especially given the current situation of world events. But I just really think that we'll see him at some point. I would be very, very surprised if we didn't.
I just don't know if I can risk it, but
I don't want
guess
to, for real.
From a medical standpoint, I don't know how risky it is relative to him waiting until next year. But I mean, if he's physically 100%, the faster he gets some snaps, the better for him. But I just can see Calais Campbell pile driving him and hurting our other. Wouldn't that be ironic if it was Calais Campbell that hurt him? But yeah, just if they play him, I would want to make sure he's complete. There's one thing, if there's any knock on Tua, and this is just me listening, this isn't me watching film on him, is he loves to extend plays, and Tua is going to have to be coached to take advantage of the NFL rules, because I think the NFL loves Tua and they love their superstars, right?
Well, not since he became a Dolphin. No, they don't really care.
No,
about Tua.
I think they like him. I think the NFL likes Tua, and I think he could get. And everybody knows he had the bad hip, and I think he could get some Tom Brady treatment if he's smart. And the joke was, if you even look bad at Tom Brady, the flag's going out for roughing the quarterback. I mean, I don't care what anybody tells me. Tom Brady gets treated differently than like Jay Cutler gets treated when they come in there. And so Tua, if he's smart, will learn how to not take a lot of hits.
So I'm going to say this. I'm going to say and I agree with Dante that I don't think Fitz is going to last the season, whether he doesn't last it physically or he just does the Fitz thing and he has the one good year. Now let's have a crap year because that's just his cycle. It is going to completely depend on the play of that line as to whether they decide, are they going to put Tua out there halfway through the season or part of the season or whatever, and let's see what he can do? Or are they going to just say, man, this line just isn't ready. Josh Rosen, here you go, buddy. You got the rest of the season. Good luck to you. I mean, honestly, I know that sounds funny, but I'm telling you, they're not going to put Tua out there if the line is just allowing too much penetration and having too many problems pass blocking. They won't do it. If the line is really, for whatever reason, come together more than we think it's probably going to, and blocking very well for the pass specifically, doing a good job, I think you could see them risk putting Tua out there at some point, only if Fitz just either isn't getting it done or gets hurt. But I think more than likely, I don't believe that'll happen, so I think Rosen will come in and get playing time, whether they like him or not, because they're going to protect that asset, that future asset. Josh Rosen, it kind of goes into your point, Dante. Josh Rosen is not that future asset. Hey, if he goes in and he plays like crap, they lose nothing. If he goes in and plays good, they can trade him away for a fourth-round pick or something.
Exactly what I was thinking, right?
There is
if he plays well, they're getting more than a fourth.
Little upside to playing.
If he plays well, they'll get a first for him.
Very little upside to putting into. I know maybe, he gets a few snaps, he gets this or that. I just don't think they'll risk it, especially considering the kind of all-in on 2021 and beyond that they are. I think it would take some really. They'd have to feel extremely comfortable in that line play to put Tua in. That's my thought.
Yeah, and again on that, if Rosen just plays well, his value is so high because he's so cheap. Like a team. Hence,
I don't think he'll play well, honestly. But yeah, maybe we get lucky and he plays well. Decent, middle of the road.
I think if you scheme him, I think he can be okay. It's not like Josh Rosen's this chump that has a terrible arm. I don't think I would go out there, have him running like 4 wide receivers and trying to throw the ball over the field. But if you bring him in, and kind of have him do what the Texans did with Ryan Tannehill and just power run the football behind your new young guards, keep slamming Howard in there and have him work in play action, Josh Rosen will be just fine. He's like I said, he's not going to be Patrick Mahomes. I mean, you got to be reality here. He's not going to take a game over, I don't think, but that doesn't mean that Josh Rosen isn't capable of playing quarterback in the NFL.
The thing that I would throw out there is that I would hope that the Dolphins are smart enough to realize, like you said, Ron, that they have to protect that asset. If I'm the Dolphins, I don't care how healthy Tua is. I don't care if he's begging Coach Flores to go and play. I'm telling you, sit your butt down and you have to wait a year.
I'm with you, Louis. I don't play him at all, but I don't know the medicals. It's always going to be a medical decision on when is he really ready.
But that's what I'm saying. I was like, I don't care if he's ready or not. You need to sit him because this is not the year for him to be messing around like that. I get the logic of get him snaps quickly. I get the the logic of let him get a taste of what the NFL is like. I get all that. But we've been talking about Tua like he's some kind of transcendent quarterback who's going to change the NFL as we know it. If he's that good, we don't need to worry about him getting those snaps as quickly as possible. He'll get the snaps. Don't worry about it. In practice. There's preseason if necessary. Everybody plays in preseason if they're healthy. So Tua, if he really is good to go, he'll get his chance in the preseason. And after that, you sit him down and you let him do everything. And even Ron is like, no, don't do it.
That's even the worst place you're going to give him snaps. You're talking about putting him behind the second or third string.
He won't be healthy. He won't be playing the preseason.
He will not.
Well, look, here's the thing. Is
well,
the potential Tua, as much potential as Tua has, he has never played a snap of NFL football. I don't see it being necessarily smart to insert him. Let's say you're at week 12. Is Tua really going to be ready to come in and play quarterback without having a full preseason training camp and where you go through all the? You don't want to throw him to the wolves, so to speak. So if we're at week 12, and we're still in the thick of things, if we're still competitively chasing the playoffs, are you going to insert a quarterback that hasn't played one snap of football yet? Are you going to go with Josh Rosen, who's been in the offense for a year, knows the offense? I don't know. To me, I just don't see a very many scenarios where it's going to make sense. And if you're getting to the end of the season and we're out of the playoff race, maybe you can play a little bit.
Still no. Still no.
Doesn't make a lot of sense. So he needs to just follow Ryan Fitzpatrick around. We've got Josh Rosen, and there's no downside to playing Rosen either. If Fitzpatrick gets hurt, we're out of the playoff race, and Josh Rosen comes in. If he plays bad,
the Dolphins get a higher first round pick.
Well, then your pick goes up. If he plays really well, I'm with Ron. Either maybe he plays well enough, you've decided to keep him as your backup, because that's a decision they very well may have to make in 2021. Is who's our backup quarterback going to be? Is it going to be Ryan Fitzpatrick? Is it going to be Josh Rosen? Is it going to be somebody else? And so, because you have to assume the plan as of right now is to start Tua in 2021. Like, he's going to be the open day starter. And the goal for this year is what steps can we take safely to try to get him prepared as possible to start in 2021. I don't think anybody's expecting Tua to be starting halfway through this season.
I'm going to go this because everybody knows it's true. There is going to be pressure to play Tua. It's not just the media. The fan base is going to scream, holler, beg for Tua to get on that field. Even if Fitzpatrick is playing the best football of his life, they are going to want to see the guy they bought the jerseys for.
Yeah, definitely, man. I mean, they're bored with armchair, GM. It's time to put the armchair coach on now, and let's decide what's best to do with our asset. Sorry, I'm so jaded with that right now. But I agree. There will be some pressure. There'll be a lot of talk on hey, why aren't you playing Tua? Why aren't you playing Tua? I think everybody knows what his injury situation was, how serious it was. I believe that if they just sit him on the bench, keep him protected, I don't think they're going to get a lot of hell for it. But everybody knows, you know what? They got this 2-year kind of almost free ride, Flores and Greer and all that. Come 2021, this team has to start winning one way or another.
Yes,
they just do, and I think they're all in to protect that 2021. Putting in Tua towards the end of the season, especially if it's behind a really bad line, I don't know that they'll take that chance. I think they'll just ride with Rosen. Now, if Fitz and Rosen both take a dive,
then we're stuck.
Then we're gonna send Rudock.
Jake Rudock.
He'll be re-signed back. We're gonna here's the only scenario I can see that with Tua, and that's
Cam Newton. He signed Cam Newton.
Okay, yeah. Let's say we start off the season at 8-1, and Ryan Fitzpatrick gets hurt. Let's just say this is a scenario, and Josh Rosen comes in and plays 2 or 3 straight really bad games, and now we're 8-3 or 8-4. Then you can start to see that pressure start to say, hey, look, we are in the thick of a playoff race right now. Tua is healthy. Rosen is struggling. Get him in there. Let's try to win some football games. Otherwise, I don't see you playing him if you're losing. I definitely don't see him playing if the line's struggling, which could happen. They're young. So if Ryan Fitzpatrick's getting beat around, I just don't see exposing Tua unless you're later into the season and you're really in playoff position. Then you might consider it, but that's the only way I can see it.
And if you can't kind of protect him in a way with a good run game, like if Fitzpatrick leaves a game hurt out of halfway through the season and he's the number one running back on our team again, yeah, they're not. That's true. That just tells you that the running game still isn't there, and that means you're asking Tua to go out and just go out there and throw it a lot and take a lot of hits and do too much in his rookie season. I don't even know if that's good for him even without the injury. There's so much. I don't know. There's so much conversation about, do you take a rookie and you just throw him out there and let him play? Do you let him sit on the bench for a year and just learn and then come out there and he's taking all those mental reps? He's learned kind of how the NFL biz works for a year. He's more comfortable in his surroundings with the playbook, etc. We've seen both work and both not work, so I'm not really sure which is better, but I don't know. With Tua, I think it's probably best. It's best to leave him be and let him sit for a year and then put him out there in 2021. That's my thought.
So you think, Dante, that that they will let him play? Now I'm going to ask you, do you think they should? Because again, Ron made the point. He doesn't know which is better, and neither do I, honestly. Is it better to let them sit for a year out of Mahomes, or is it better to throw them out into the fire as quickly as possible and let them get their lumps now?
I mean, I think it depends on the player, right? I think, we kind of use that euphemism of, he'll just sit for a year and then he'll be fine. I think, you have to get in and talk with the player. And some guys are hands-on. Sometimes sitting on the bench can be detrimental to a player's development. And they get stale over there. They're not learning. I mean, you talk to any person who's played football at a high level and they will tell you that live reps, nothing can replace live reps as far as learning goes. And I just think, for quarterbacks specifically, and something that we talk about a lot is that, if you want to sit a quarterback, it's because you're trying to coach bad habits out of him, right? And if you want a quarterback who's going to start right away, you want that quarterback to be pretty sound. And I think that's the type of player that Tua is. I went back and watched more of his film the past couple of days. And, yeah, there are some things that he could improve on, but I don't think anything that he is bad at is necessarily going to be improved by him sitting on the bench. Now, if it's a health issue, then obviously I'm not going to sit here and argue about that. If he's not healthy, he shouldn't be on the field. If there's a high risk of re-injury, then he shouldn't be on the field. But if we're talking about solely as a player who needs to be developed, I think it depends player to player. And based on what I see off to his film, I don't think him sitting on the bench is going to do anything different for him. His problems are not mentally. It's really just a lot of it's experience. A lot of it is identifying trap coverages. And
he has no problems. Oh, sorry.
Well,
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
No, I
that's
totally
the Bama fan in him.
He's one of the highest graded quarterback prospects I've ever had. I just think he needs experience. I think some of his flaws are just due to the fact that he hasn't played a lot of football. He doesn't always see trap coverages or defenders who make individually great plays. And I think all of those things come with time. And I think it would be beneficial for him to get on the field. But again, there is the problem that he is an injury red flag, right? So that needs to be considered. And I think you all made a really good point that it's always going to be about the injuries with Tua. I would not be surprised if he doesn't play this year, obviously. I just think the pressure will be too much. And I just think I think they'll want to put him out there. Like, I really do. I think they'll want to see what he's got, even if it's just one game. Patrick Mahomes played one game his rookie season at the end. He played week 17 against Denver when they were out of the playoffs. I don't know. I have a hunch that they'll want to see what they got in the kid. He's the highest quarterback that they've taken in a long time. We talked about that pre-show. I just really think that they'll want to see what they have at some point.
I get that, but from whatever I've watched in the NFL, it's so rare that a rookie quarterback doesn't have growth issues no matter what, no matter who it is. And
exactly.
Tua is not going to come in. Most quarterbacks come in healthy. They're in training camp. Even Patrick Mahomes, he was the backup quarterback the whole year for the Chiefs. He got to play in preseason games. The Dolphins would be insane to play Tua in the preseason games this year, if there even are preseason games.
No, I agree. I don't.
And so
definitely don't rush him.
Yeah, but if you put him in later in the year, you're putting in a quarterback that has had almost no live reps, and you may be putting him in a game where you're playing a team that's in the playoff race has to win at all costs. So they're going to be scheming to go after him.
I think, you have to pick your spot, and if he's hurt the whole year and he just happens to be healthy for the last game, I don't think they put him in, but I really think he's healthy right now.
Let me phrase it this way. You're going to be the defensive coordinator of the team that's going to be game planning the Dolphins. And the Dolphins put Tua on the field. What's the first thing you're going to do?
Well, I mean, I think any rookie.
I'm going to try to wreck Tua.
I blitz him and hit him over and over and over. I am going to hit Tua I'm going to tell my defense, try to hit him every play. Because you want to punish the Dolphins for putting him out there. And so it's like, if you put Tua on the field, he has to be ready to take on full contact. You can't tell him to be careful. I mean, you want to, but you're going to stick him out there with no preseason reps. This is going to be his first exposure to live game speed. And you're going to be playing him against a team that has got to win at all costs. And that team is going to, whereas if you play him in the preseason, they're probably going to put a base defense. He's going to be playing, the veterans aren't even going to be trying hard because they don't want to get hurt. And so he's going to be playing against second and third teamer. It's a much better environment for him to learn in as a rookie. I'm just making the point. I don't disagree with what you guys are saying about the pressure. I just think it would be extremely foolish and detrimental to Tua to put him in like week 12 against a team that is in the playoff race, because they have got a game plan to win the game. And you're going to say, all right, if Miami's playing Tua, they're going to be scared to death to get him hurt. Let's just attack him, because they're going to play a style of offense that gets the ball out really quick, or they're going to run real heavy. So we're going to take that away, and anytime he throws, we're going to blitz. And so
I hear what you're saying. I just think, that's how every defensive coordinator attacks every rookie quarterback ever. I mean, I don't think that that's exclusive to Tua. And if we're so concerned about him getting hurt, I think there needs to be a certain point where we take the training wheels off and we have to just say, I agree. Like, he could sit the entire year. I'm not saying he shouldn't. I'm not advocating that we put him out there when we should not. I just think at some point, I just have a hunch that we'll see him at some point. I really don't think that they'll be able to get away with sitting him for an entire year. I don't think this team is going to be good enough for them to get away with it.
Well, I'm kind of wondering if they won't put him on the physically unable to perform list. That might be where
that would be smart, right? They get out ahead of it and they go, well, we can't play him. He's just literally – that would be smart. So I think that would be them looking ahead, and that would be a good decision.
I'm excited to see him too.
If he's on the PUP list, he's not allowed to practice, though, right?
Yeah, he can't do anything at that point.
Well, and what are you going to do with him in practice? I mean, he can throw the football.
You let him throw the football around. I mean, what the heck? Why the heck not?
They're not going to stop him from doing that. But I just think for the best, for his sake, like, I want him to come in, have a full training camp, have a full preseason, and go through all the steps as if he's going to be the starter. Throughout, I just think he'll have a better chance to success once he goes from the beginning of training camp, mini camp, all that, where he's playing with the starters. He'll have an even better line, hopefully, next year. I guess why I keep circling back around, I just can't make sense of playing to it all this year. I can't think of it unless, like I said, we're doing really, really well and Rosen plays that bad. But we'll see.
I wouldn't go as far as to say that he shouldn't be on the field practicing. I wouldn't put him on the PUP list. I would, if I'm not mistaken, the new CBA kicks in and basically says that you can now have 55 players instead of 53. Is that correct? Yeah. So so now you have that extra slot for an extra quarterback, and that's going to be Tua. So you have Fitzpatrick and Rosen active on game day. Tua's inactive, which is fine, and at least he still gets to practice. Now, in practice, obviously, there's this little thing called the red shirt that says if you touch the quarterback, you're going to be cut the next day. So I don't see the danger in letting Tua get those kind of reps where he can at least call signals, take snaps, and throw the ball around against some defensive. Even if they're not going to be obviously gunning for him like they will in real games, but it's nothing else. At least he kind of gets a feel for what it's like to be in the NFL, not just sitting there and watching from the sideline because he's on the PUP list and he's not allowed to do anything.
Well, let me ask you this question, just for the sake of it, because it kind of goes along with that. If there's a big injury in training camp at quarterback on another team, and we get a phone call for Josh Rosen, are you guys willing to move him, and for what would you take for him?
I would take any pick given to me for him. I'm serious.
That's awesome. I love it.
I mean, they would probably sign Cam before they did that, especially if it's a quarterback that needs to start.
Well, Cam's going to have a home in the next
I just think he has no value right now. I mean, there's literally no value to his name. He has been unsuccessful in Arizona. He was unsuccessful last season. People think that he has an abrasive personality and they don't like him. I just don't. I wrote about this, a couple of months ago. I just don't think that there's any value for Josh Rosen right now. It's a shame. I like the kid, and I think he's got a ton of potential. I think he's got a good arm. There is too much evidence that he is not a good quarterback in the NFL that we would get anything remotely for him. So if a team wants to call me and offer a 7th round pick, I'd probably say yes.
A 7th?
I really will. You guys can say no. I just don't think that there's value for him right now.
So we build up the value. If he's not, listen, if the team's not going to give up at least like Sam Bradford of all players got a 1st rounder out of.
Sam Bradford had a couple good seasons.
Sam
Bradford is Tom Brady compared to Josh Rosen.
No. Hold on. Because there are a lot of. Okay, how about Nick Foles? Nick Foles got a 1st rounder.
He won a Super Bowl.
No, he won a Super Bowl.
Oh, God, please.
Against Tom Brady.
No, I remember when Nick Foles was supposedly the next great NFL quarterback. The guy who, I forget it. Okay,
compared to Josh Rosen,
he's not even Tannehill.
Josh Rosen's bar is the floor. You don't understand. Like, it's not. His bar is the floor. Anything above the floor is going to be better than Josh Rosen.
I am not trading Josh Rosen for a 7th round pick because, again, this is where you build up. You build up value if there's no value for him right now. And besides, no backup we go out there and look for right now is going to be as good as Josh Rosen. How about that?
I tell you what.
No, I disagree with that.
I would trade.
They're not going to have it silly.
Who's a better backup?
Okay, I would trade.
Jameis Winston.
Sam's not going to be a backup. Are you kidding?
Right
I'm just saying they're probably better. Rudock might be better.
Josh Rosen
Rosen
now
hasn't played that much.
I'd trade him right now for a backup long snapper.
Oh, there we go. That's it. Trade him for a long snapper. We can always call it Bill O'Brien. He'll probably give us a 3rd.
Yeah,
third.
There you go.
We'll trade him straight up for Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
Boom.
There you go.
Then
I was just curious, like, if we trade him or not, because I do think that despite the opinions of Josh Rosen, he was still a top 10 quarterback just a couple years ago, and I think there's a team that would like to bring him in and try to work with him.
Emphasis on was.
I think a lot of people forget that, like, Josh was supposed to go like top 5 in that draft, and he like fell out of that range, and every quarterback besides Lamar Jackson went before him. Like, teams just did not like him, and Arizona traded up for him because Steve Keim really wanted him, and then they flipped on him in a year for
they thought the Dolphins and
Kyler Murray.
Let me put one more scenario just to make sure you guys have Rosen. If the New England Patriots, let's say Stidham gets hurt, and the New England Patriots call up and offer us a 4th round pick for Josh Rosen, would you
can
take?
have him.
Yep, do it.
You'd ship him to New England?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
A 7th? No.
Yes.
Again, this is what I'm talking about.
It's sabotage. It's
Yes,
sabotage.
it's
He's not
Man,
gonna be
you
good.
guys are
No,
low.
You're helping the Patriots get Trevor Lawrence next year. Is what you're doing.
All right. Well, see, that's a better argument. I'm more inclined to that argument than Josh Rosen is going to be.
We don't want you to suck that bad. So no, you can't have them. We need you to go like 7-9, so you can keep kind of
unless
being
Belichick totally forgets how to coach. The Patriots aren't getting Trevor Lawrence anyway. So
yeah, that's true. I agree with that, Chad. I agree with that because I think right now the Patriots are trying to go like 12-4 with Stidham just so Belichick can shove it in Brady's face, and Brady's going to try and win a Super Bowl without Belichick just to shove it in his face.
that is absolutely the case.
Yeah, that's pretty much what's going on there.
I'm not gonna lie though. Bucks offense is loaded.
All right, real quick to
Not loaded with Josh McDaniels.
Switching off from quarterback, how do you guys feel about what we did at running back with not getting Dobbins and making the trade with the 49ers? Are you guys high or low on that?
I mean, I'm
fine
bummed.
with it.
Go ahead.
I'm fine with it. I think it's good value getting a Bradea for a 5th-round pick. I think that's good value. I'm all for not drafting running backs high. I'm one of those running backs don't matter people. So I think it's great value. I'm totally fine with it. You get Thunder, you get Lightning. You're not paying them any money. You didn't give up any premium assets. Sign me up.
Yeah, I'm 100% for it. You guys know that from the previous 2 shows, I had said that I believed that the Dolphins, Flores and Greer did not put a premium on getting a high draft pick, running back, I should say, drafting a running back high. I just didn't feel like they put a premium on that. If the player had fallen to them in the right spot, they would have done it. They weren't not going to give up assets to go get one. That just wasn't that's just not where Flores came from. As I said before, they rarely featured the one back in New England. Few times they did. One time we saw them reach and draft one high in Sony Michel. I can't even say that necessarily worked, although I thought, a couple years ago he was good in that Super Bowl. And so that doesn't surprise me because, again, with their running back, they're looking for an entire room that can do different things at different times, and that's what they're trying to build. And I still think they got a little bit of work, to go to do that, but they have a decent 7 guys to work with. I was kind of disappointed we dropped Perrine. I kind of I was hoping they'd keep him and let him play a little, see what he could do in the off season and see what he could do in preseason. But anyway, no, I like it for 5th round. Getting Breda, I think, was a good job.
As far as I'm concerned, this is a win no matter how you look at it. I'll admit that I was bummed that the Dolphins couldn't get their hands on J.K. Dobbins. I think Dobbins can do a lot of things and do a lot of things well. But like you said, Ron, and this is what I was saying as well, based on what you said, is that, again, the New England Patriots philosophy is that you can pretty much throw any old body in there and you can make it work. Now, with that said, I will say that this is the best part about trading for Breda. Breda's on a 1-year deal right now. So that means that the Dolphins have 3 options. 1, wait and see if he does well. And if he does well, you can either re-sign him to a role players type of contract, which means that, obviously, since Breda's not going to be the workhorse guy, he can't demand a boatload of cash a la Derrick Henry. So you can either do that. If he does well, you can let him walk. Somebody else will sign him, and then you can potentially get a comp pick out of it, which is like another New England-ish type of move. Or if he does bad, well, you just dump him and nothing happened.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think it's perfect. Everybody was freaking out during the draft that they weren't drafting a running back. I honestly did not care. I really did not for me. And I like Dobbins. I would not have been.
Technically, they drafted 2.
Yeah.
Well, I like Dobbins too.
Yeah, I mean, I like Dobbins. It's nothing against Dobbins or Swift or any of the other top running backs. It's just a 5th-round pick for a good running back combined with Jordan Howard. And plus, you still have Patrick Laird and Myles Gaskin. Maybe they give you 100 yards. Eventually, I just think it's, again, running back is not a position that you need to spend premium picks on. GMs just do it because they're safe picks typically, and it looks good on their resume. Right. So, again, I'm glad the Dolphins waited. I think it was a good decision.
I will say in this draft, I think when we talked last week, you guys remember telling me last week that my favorite was Edwards-Helaire. I liked him the best on film. Yeah. And he was the first one that went. I did not find Swift. I find that he's fast and he's shifty, but I highly question whether he will lower his shoulder in the NFL when the blocking's pretty tight and the yards aren't there. Is he going to sacrifice his body so you get a 2nd and 7 rather than a 2nd and 9? I just don't see that out of him, whereas Hilaire will do that. But with that being said, this draft didn't have an elite back in it. There was no Saquon Barkley or Adrian Peterson type talent or in this draft, and so that's why you get the back end. And so that's a fair statement. Is what is the difference between Jordan Howard and J.K. Dobbins, or how much different of an impact are you going to have in the offense? And the reality is that position is hard to invest in, even if you have good backs. You get pounded in the NFL. You take a beating, and I don't think you're going to see it in today's NFL with the speed and the size of the athletes today. I don't think you can have a back that can take 20, 25 carries a game and last more than a year or two without having a lot of injury issues. I think that's just reality that it's going to be a by committee situation. So I agree with you that, but I like the versatility that they have with their two backs now. And there's a lot of versatility on this offense. So I just was curious what you guys thought about it, because that was probably the biggest story of the draft, is everybody thought they wanted Dobbins, which I don't think we did. I think if we'd have wanted, we would have jumped up and got him.
And let's not sleep on Patrick Laird, okay? Let's not act like he's just not there anymore. Listen,
you guys and Patrick Laird.
I agree. He's a piece. As I keep saying, he's just a piece. He's not saying he's gonna go be our starter and get 1,000 yards and 80 catches. He's part of the room. I think he'll continue to be part of the room this coming year, to go with Brady, to go with Howard. And then, they need a fourth guy, and you'll see a lot of guys fighting for that fourth spot. That's personally what I think. I think that they see value in Patrick Laird as just a piece of the offense that they can mix in there.
Chad, besides Mark Walton, who was the best looking running back out there?
In Miami?
Yeah.
I didn't.
Gaskins, maybe?
Gaskin, better than Laird?
Well, but again, you're gonna have 4 running backs.
Our blocking was so bad.
That's what I'm saying, though. But Laird actually did things.
Laird was more successful.
I think he does have an interesting skill set, but he's always gonna be limited by the fact he can't take it to the house. He's just not that fast. Whereas, now we've got a guy that can outrun the linebackers and D-backs, where Laird, he can do some interesting things in a 10-15 yard space. He can catch, but I think he's going to be fighting for a roster spot. That's what I think. You guys might be really mad if he gets beat out by Kalen Ballage.
Oh, I will be ticked. That'll be ridiculous.
This is my official prediction regarding the running back situation. It's going to be Jordan Howard, who's going to be the main guy. He's the Thunder. Then Breida comes in as the complimentary lightning back. Patrick Laird is the do-it-all, everything back. And then you're going to have our good friend Malcolm Perry, who's going to be able to throw, punt, pass, and kick, and all that other stuff. And he'll be able to be the Taysom Hill for the Dolphins, and Kalen Ballage will be out of a job as the Wildcat running back, and he'll be the one who's gone. So that's my official prediction. Now, before we call this show over, I do want to throw one thing out there. You guys have been saying over and over and over again that you would not use a high capital pick on a running back. But next year, there's going to be a call for a lot of weapons. There's a certain back named Travis Etienne who's probably going to come out. No?
No. Not doing it. Not in the first round.
Why not, Dante? I thought he was that special.
He's good, but I can draft Chuba Hubbard in the second round, and he might be just as good. I can draft Najee Harris in the second round. He might be just as good.
Roll Tide.
I can sign a running back who might be just as good. I just don't. I don't see the purpose of it. You want to I can get behind drafting a receiver in the first round. I can get behind drafting a tight end in the first round next year.
Are there any tight ends worth having next year?
Yeah, it's a good tight end class.
So hard to tell. I hate that when there hasn't been a college season yet. I mean, things change.
Well, I don't know. I think there's a couple good guys at the top. I don't know if they're first rounders, but we'll see. But I don't think Etienne. I wrote up Etienne, and he did not get a first round grade for me. Before he declared, I thought he was going to declare, so I wrote him up. He got a high second for me, so he didn't even grade above Swift. So I just don't think that. I don't know. I would not, but if you guys, if we have a really good year and it's apparent that all we're missing is that running back, maybe I could get behind it. But if the offensive line's still bad and there's more holes on defense or something, I can't get on board with that.
Okay, let me throw something out here. I just want to figure something out here. So I'm trying to gauge the situation here. So based on your mentality, all three of you guys would not have spent a first rounder on the likes of Ezekiel Elliott or Saquon Barkley?
Well, those are different types.
No. That's what I'm asking. But that's what I'm asking.
Those are different. I would have done it for Saquon or Elliott.
So,
yes.
But here's the thing. What is it that they display that other running backs have not?
Okay.
Go ahead.
No, I'll go first and just that Saquon Barkley's the highest graded player that I've ever scouted. I gave him next to a perfect grade. And just given that, again, he's going to catch 100 balls while also carrying the ball 300 times. He's the epitome of someone who's literally a do-it-all player. I mean, he's just a special athlete. He's a special player. You know, he's one of those, like we talk about transcendent prospects. He's a transcendent prospect for me. I would not have drafted Ezekiel Elliott in the first round. Full disclosure, I don't think he's that type of running back. But Barkley and Christian McCaffrey for me are two that I would put above the pack as they're basically slot receivers, really. I mean, they get more catches in the slot than a ton of other slot receivers. Christian McCaffrey had 120 catches last year. 80 of them came out of the slot. He probably outproduced 4 of the Dolphins receivers by himself. I just think those players are just on a different level, and it's so hard for running backs to get to that level. I don't think ETN is that type of guy. I don't think we're going to see that type of guy next year, maybe even the year after. I just think that those players are so rare.
To me, Lewis, there are different ways to look at it. I want to see, if I'm going to invest a high first-round pick in a running back, he's got to be very good at yard after contact. And so I'm usually looking at a guy that weighs at least 220 pounds that can go between guard center, guard tackle, lower his shoulder, and get 2 or 3 yards, run like a Derrick Henry maybe, but also has at least 4.4 speed so that when he goes through a hole, he can take it to the house.
Yeah.
And there's not many guys that have that talent. And then in today's NFL, can also catch. Like not only are you big, fast, can pound the rock, can beat people around the edge, but can also catch out of the backfield. And I'll go one step further, and not take anything away from Christian McCaffrey. He's an amazing football player, but not even he can do what Saquon Barkley can. Saquon Barkley, I think, is a much harder tackle than Christian McCaffrey is. They're special, and you don't see them that often where those backs come out where they're. I mean, the only one we've ever had on our team is Ricky Williams, and you know how that went. But that was a guy that could run around the edge. He could lower his shoulder and just pound it up the middle. And it's hard to find guys that can do it all. And when you get them, you get an advantage on offense because the defense has to be worried about everything. But and a lot of running backs, they are specialized, so you know they have some kind of deficiency, but. That's just today's the NFL today is predicated on throwing the football. That's just the reality of it. So it is harder when you get guys like Ezekiel Elliott because what Christian McCaffrey can do is far more expanded than Ezekiel Elliott. But I have a hard time grading a college back right now that I would say is going to be a top 10 next year. It's going to depend how forms, how healthy he is, all that sort of stuff. But I don't see Miami doing it. Who was the last great Patriots running back?
LeGarrette Blount.
Yeah, probably for one season.
Would they get him off free agency for like a big minimum or something?
I think it was like UDFA. I think he was an undrafted free agent that they brought into camp.
Oh, that's right, because he got like ejected in Oregon for fighting or something like that.
Yeah, but I thought LeGarrette Blount played somewhere else before he played.
I think he
did.
did.
He went to Pittsburgh, sucked, and went back to New England and was awesome again.
Yeah.
Well, again, his role is just pounded up the middle, basically. But
just my thought, real quick, on the drafting a running back really high. For me, it's got to be a guy who you clearly see can change the game on his own, or affect the offense on his own, regardless of the issues around him. Barkley could do it no matter who the quarterback was, no matter how crappy the wide receivers were, or the tight end situation was, or the bad offensive line, or whatever. It didn't seem to matter. Barkley could seem to get it done as long as you just handed him the ball or tossed him the ball in the flat.
I think the back Gurley could before he had the knee, but he was that special.
Ezekiel Elliott's the same way, and McCaffrey changes the game. Yeah, he can't run between the tackles and take the hits that Barkley probably can, or Elliott, but those guys are just super special. And they're in as much of a Najee Harris fan as I am, and I think he's going to be a really good back, but he's going to be more like a Derrick Henry, just huge guy, really hard to tackle. But I don't think he's an all-purpose running back like some of these guys are, and even I don't think he's really a first rounder unless it's a really low first round, and you don't need some other positions. I would have to agree, but really quick, and I know you're trying to wrap up, Lewis. I just want to make sure we get a chance to ask Dante about Brandon Jones because we kind of skipped over him and haven't talked about him at all. Because he was the one player we missed. I want to just hear Dante's thoughts at some point before we go.
I'll give some quick thoughts before he does. He's gonna have number 20. Everybody's jerseys are going to be recycled, and he's a bookworm. Those are that's my official scouting report on Brandon Jones. Go ahead, Dante.
Funny.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is a classic Patriots defense pick, just given that I think he's probably a strong safety and a sub-package linebacker. My worry is not about Brandon Jones, the player. It's the Dolphins safety room. Is I don't think there's a good coverage safety in the current Dolphins room. I think Eric Rowe's fine in man coverage against limited players, but I have no interest in seeing him as a free safety. Bobby McCain was less than impressive in that role last year. Yeah. And Brandon Jones, again, is not someone that I thought projected well to that role. I think he's a strong safety. You want him in the box, playing the run, playing in the hook curl zones. I just don't. I don't know. Again, it's nothing against the kid. I'm just worried. I think he's a fine, strong safety. I think that's a fine pick at pick 70. I think he's a good fit. He's going to hit hard. He's going to be a force in the running game.
He's going to be Rashad Jones.
There's going to be a lot of comparisons made to Rashad Jones. If he does end up being Rashad Jones, I'd call that a win, honestly. I think that's probably his ceiling, if we're being honest. I think that's probably where his ceiling is Rashad Jones. But he's definitely that type of player, that mold. Again, my concern is more with the rest of the room, in that I don't see a player who is a good free safety. I don't see a player who's going to cover a lot of ground and make a play on the ball. And those players are extremely valuable in the NFL right now. And I would have liked to see them draft a player like Antoine Winfield Jr. or Ashton Davis, who went a couple of picks before Brandon Jones, just given that what they bring to the table is inherently more valuable than what Brandon Jones does. But again, I get it, right? Because he's a fit in what Brian Flores wants to do. So I just think it's a good pick. I think he's going to fill his role well. I'm just worried about how valuable his role is relative to the other players that they could have drafted.
I don't think he'll play a ton this year. He'll probably be more of a special teams guy. And maybe Flores can develop him. And I haven't watched film on him, to be fair, but the knock on him I've heard is he struggles in man-to-man coverage, which can be tough as a safety.
Coverage player.
Well, he's not going to be asked to do that in this. I mean,
they'll scheme him.
If we ask him to be man-to-man, then what? I mean, I don't think we drafted the right guy. Then
you just got to realize that offenses love to try to find that guy, get him matched up on tight end and stuff like that.
Yeah, I just wonder because of, I mean, that's going to not be easy to do against this defense and the players we have if we have the right personnel on the field. I don't think it's just going to be so easy. Oh, Brandon Jones is out there. Let's just do this. I don't know. Maybe. But it's not going to be easy to do because if they switch out to 4 or 5 wide, we have the DBs to go. Oh, yeah, okay. Well, I'll give you. Here's my 3 cornerbacks, and let me throw out, some Needham there too. And here's our linebacker. It's a couple of lighter linebackers that can cover. I'm going to put Baker out there. I mean, dude, this talent. The talent transformation on this defense compared to 2 years ago is awesome. I'm not going to sit here and say we're Seattle or even last year's New England, but man, you're not going to be able to just scheme Miami's defense and just fix it all by continuing New England liked to do to our defense every time we'd play them. They would somehow just scheme their way out of it because we had so many weaknesses. Not going to be as easy anymore to do.
No, the Byron Jones was big. Because like I was saying, if you have 2 corners, you can feel comfortable just putting man-to-man on the other 2 wide receivers. You can move your safeties and linebackers all over the place and be really, really risky because you feel comfortable leaving Xavier Howard on an island or you feel comfortable leaving Jones on an island. And Miami does have that. And so you can protect your safeties that might struggle in coverage. Or if you have a linebacker, like if you have Rakeem McMillan in there playing, you can help him a lot. And by having guys not, you can have a double zone on a receiver or something or a tight end because you can, if you want to call that cheating a little bit, you don't have to help Xavier Howard. If you come in and you're playing a good wide receiver, you might feel comfortable not giving him deep safety help and just leaving Xavier Howard out there man-to-man. That's the advantage of having 2 really good corners. And a lot of good defensive coaches were good defensive coaches because Rex Ryan, he had Darrelle Revis, and Darrelle Revis allowed him to just go put him on the best receiver, and we're going to use our other defense 10 guys to do other stuff. And when you have a corner,
and back then Antonio Cromartie was no slouch either, so you could basically have 2 guys.
Oh, I'm just saying, Miami, with those two corners, those are both very good man-to-man corners. We should be able to do a lot of flexibility. But back to the guy we're talking about, that was just a knock on him as he struggles in man-to-man coverage. So I agree with Dante. That probably means he's going to be a traditional strong safety. I know a lot of coaches don't like to use the term free safety and strong safety anymore, but he's going to be a guy that's going to be the most effective up in the box, not a guy that's roaming back or a guy that's going to go isolate man-to-man on a slot receiver or something like that.
All right, last thing before we call it a day. So, as an NFL analyst, what grade would you give Mr. Chad Forbes? On an A to F scale, Dante.
I mean, honestly, I don't even read his stuff anymore. So I think that's like
that's telling.
Yeah, I'm not a fan. I don't like the dog people. He says
you saw what he gave. You saw what he gave the Dolphins, right? For his whole offseason.
I don't read his stuff. I have no
F.
idea what
he gave the Dolphins an F.
Oh,
this is the same guy that said last year. This is the same guy, and this is why I either blocked or muted him. This is the same guy that going into last year said we had the worst wide receiver room in the NFL. Blocked right there. I was done. I'm like, I mean, yeah, I won't sit here and say that we were top 5 or anything, but to say we were the worst. I mean, it was ridiculous, man. It was so ridiculous. Anyway, that guy has said
the Patriots got an A, the Bills got an A, the Jets got a B, and the Dolphins got an F.
And he gave us an F the year before too. The beauty of football I don't.
Is that guy. You get to decide it on the field. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah. I don't listen to him. I don't even know why we said his name. Now people are gonna go look him up. That makes me mad. Don't go look him up. He's crap.
I had
unless it's to go harass him for a little bit, then go look him up, then block him.
Oh my goodness, some people, man, the bias. All right, so man, I didn't want this show to end. There's so much to talk about still. We're gonna have to save it. We're gonna have to save it for next week.
Save it for next week.
All right then. So once again, thank you everybody for joining us for this episode of the Dolphins Brawl. I know it dragged on a little longer than we were supposed to let it, but I mean, this is what happens when we get talking. It's just you can't stop us. You can't stop us. So thank you all once again for joining us. We will see you all next week for another episode of the Dolphins Brawl. Good night.